late 19th century white supremacy campaigns, that self-serving memory of the Southern past romanticized slavery and reconfigured the Civil War as a struggle not to preserve human bondage, but to uphold states' rights. It also demonized Reconstruction as a tragic era of Negro rule that justified disfranchisement and segregation. No lesson of our history was taught us earlier, Katharine remembered, and none with greater urgency than the either-or terms in which this was couched. Soldiers might perish, slavery might end, mansions might crumble, but as long as whites retained their dominance over blacks, the South's cause had not been lost. Katharine's effort to free herself from that legacy began in earnest when she encountered liberal Christianity and the social sciences at a small but vibrant women's college in her native region. She left the South briefly to study at Columbia University, returning in 1920 to spearhead the YWCA's campaign to build an interracial student movement in the face of Jim Crow. She left again 5 years later, eventually settling with her partner, the radical Smith College economist Dorothy Wolfe Douglas, in Northampton, Massachusetts. Braving the job market in the late 1920s, just as professionalization and discrimination combined to stamp the social sciences as a masculine preserve, she experienced at first hand the dashed hopes of academic women, whose numbers declined steadily over the next 40 years. For Katharine, as for so many of her generation, the Great Depression had a galvanizing effect. Faced with mass poverty and inspired by mass mobilization, she abandoned the impersonal voice of scholarly writing, the price of admission to an academic position, in favor of activism and advocacy in behalf of a robust labor movement, a strong social security system, and other far-reaching New Deal legislation. At the same time, she returned to the South, not as a literal geographic place, but as a site of political commitment and moral passion, a landscape of the heart. Coming out as a white Southerner, she wrote The South in Progress, 1940. In 1946, she published her autobiography, her breakthrough work. The Making of a Southerner spoke to its own historical moment, a decade of hope when Southern civil rights advocates, labor unionists, radicals, and liberals joined forces to put race, region, and, to a lesser extent, gender, at the center of the New Deal's predominantly economic agenda. It also served as the inaugural work in a still vigorous tradition of personal narratives by white Southerners grappling with their complicity in America's original sin. The South has long elicited from its writers a rage to explain. Whether they looked back in pride, anger, or sorrow, most white Southerners who committed themselves to print shared a belief in the region's fundamental difference from the rest of the country, a conviction that, as W.J. Cash put it, the South is not quite a nation within a nation, but the next thing to it. Katharine grew up in a family in which Southern exceptionalism was an article of faith, and she understood all too well that idea's invidious uses. Armed with that knowledge, she challenged the Janus-faced image of the region as either the not modern, a lost cause, a lotus land of memory, a touchstone of yearning and loss, or the nation's collective unconscious, the repository of racial nightmares that white Americans refused to face. Against these dream states, she deployed what she called the plain facts of a history of regional dissent, the national dimensions of racism, and the essential Americanness of a diverse and ever-changing region.